Genetically modified food is terrible, folks. Even here in Australia, just recently, just a week or so ago, there was a seedling supplier, and for some reason, which would appear to be sabotage, it would appear to be a deliberate act, but what happened was that all of the seedlings that were produced by this seedling supplier somehow became contaminated with some type of toxin that was introduced possibly into the seeds somehow. And this very much goes to show why farmers should be allowed to seed bank. They should be allowed to collect their own seed from their own crops and grow their own seed every year, just as they have done for centuries. They should all be using heritage seeds. You need this amount of different seed stocks and seeds growing in different climates in different places and all producing seed all the time in order to maintain genetic diversity within the species, folks. You can't go eliminating all of these different subspecies of a plant and having just one gene pool of a plant controlled by a corporation, and they have to produce the seed every year and they produce it genetically modified. So this is incredibly dangerous. This is such a dangerous thing to do to the food chain on this planet. And just seeing the effect that these contaminated seedlings is going to have on the farm community in Queensland, Australia, because most of the farm community get their seeds from this one place, because it's, Monsanto have the monopoly on seeds, folks. But now it turns out that all of these seedlings are contaminated, so there's going to be a huge food shortage in Queensland this year, which will probably also filter out to the rest of Australia, and the prices of food are going to skyrocket, simply because one corporation holds the monopoly on the seedling business. And this is such a good demonstration, and this is why it is so important that the farmers are allowed to maintain their own heritage seed banks. The loss of diversity we are seeing in our food chain as the result of companies like Monsanto is another very serious problem that we face. It would appear that it is this genetically modified food, probably combined with the constant chemtrail spraying, that has seen the decline in numbers of bees across the world, which also creates a very serious problem in the food chain. But again, all of these things are symptoms of a much larger problem, and the problem is the corruption that allows all of these symptoms to persist. We all look at this system and we can all see that it's corrupt. We all know that the wars are contrived. We know that there's hardship going on all around us on the planet. And yet as societies, we just seem to put up with it. We turn a blind eye. We possibly donate a few dollars to a charitable organisation. And by doing so, we feel that we've actually done something, and we kind of shift the problem over to somebody else to take care of. Yet if we could just see that all of these so-called problems are simply symptoms, and that if we simply united as communities and turned to face our government and basically said, look, enough is enough, we want things done right now, and we started doing the right thing, started planting communal gardens and helping our societies and helping each other, we could literally change the world. The thing that prevents us from doing any of the above is our fear of the corrupt legislation that's been put in place by corporate-controlled government systems. And all these systems do, folks, is prevent we the people from being who and what we actually are. None of these systems are designed to help humanity. None of them are designed to be of benefit to the human psyche. None of them are designed to be of benefit to the planet. They are all simply systems of control. And over a period of years, within these systems, the rules slowly get tighter and tighter and tighter. And if we don't address this within the structure of our societies, before we know it, we simply won't be able to move. There are too many people who refuse to address the darkness that exists at the top levels of our social systems. There are too many people who believe that by ignoring the shadow, they're actually facing it. There are too many people that are waiting for someone else or something else to come and save them, waiting to ascend to a higher consciousness in 2012, waiting for a saviour to come and help humanity out of the position we now find ourselves in. There are some who are awaiting the Galactic Federation to come and save us, are waiting to ascend to the fifth dimension, are waiting for a UFO to come and save the planet. There are very few who are prepared to look within themselves and to realize that the answer lies within, and that all that is needed is for the human race to connect with each other and to realize that we are the system. I've said on previous shows, I think I said last week, that there's no point going to protests and things. Well, there isn't if only a few people go. But like what was happening at the G20 summit, what should have happened is the entire nation should have gone. The entire nation should have stopped work and stood up and said no. That would be the right thing to do, and that would be a wonderful thing to see. But I believe that that will only ever happen with some type of conscious evolution. And perhaps things are simply going to have to get worse before people will seize the opportunity that these type of events provide for them. But the way things are going, folks, I'm sure these opportunities will keep presenting themselves to us. I have a feeling that the ride is only just beginning and that things are going to get a good deal more interesting before the planet and the human race finds a way to collectively heal itself. I think that's simply what it takes, folks. But I don't have any fear about events that might transpire. I simply have concern for my fellow man. I have concern for those who may suffer under the weight of events that are beyond their control, simply due to the apathy of those who may have been able to exercise some control over those events if they'd only woken up to the true nature of reality and to the true nature of what the system that we live under is actually all about. As I've said before, I'm sure, one of the biggest problems that we face, one of the biggest hurdles to overcome in dealing with all of this, is the fact that as societies we've become complacent. We've grown to accept the corruption that exists in our political and legal systems and social systems. We look at politicians these days and we just go, oh well, they're all crooks. And we just leave it there, and we say that as if it doesn't really matter. But it really does matter, folks, because look at what's happening. Look at what's happening in the Gulf of Mexico. Look at what's happening all across the planet. Look at what happened in Canada at the G20 summit. Look what happened in England at G20 last year. Look at what happened in Australia when President Bush came out at the OPEC summit. And they had this massive cordoned off section of the city and massive armed police presence, even though the citizens of Australia have been disarmed. Look at what happened in Copenhagen last year during the attempted signing of the Copenhagen Treaty. So you see, this fascism is not limited to any one country, folks. It's happening right across the globe. It's growing more and more every day. It's growing because the citizens of all of our countries simply aren't addressing the criminal cabal that has usurped control of all of our governments. The criminal cabal that is operated and puppeteered by those who run the global central banking system. And it all happens like clockwork, folks. Really, if you just step back and look at it. If you look at everything they've been trying to get through in the last few years, look at how miserably they failed in Copenhagen. And when you look at that, then the motive for this oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico suddenly becomes glaringly apparent. As I've also said before, we couldn't really seriously expect the legislation they wanted to push through in Copenhagen to simply go away. Of course, they're going to try something else, and the environment is the perfect tool with which to unite the human race. The co-opting of the environmental movement that is now being attempted by Al Gore and Bill Gates, it's also like a co-opting of the spiritual movement as well, the whole New Age movement, all of the green and environmental and New Age movements all co-opted together under the umbrella of the shift, and the way to fix the problems of the earth is to hand control to Al Gore and Bill Gates and introduce carbon tax on everybody and reduce the entire population of the earth to the state of the third world, while the banking cartels live in absolute untold wealth and splendor. That's their solution to the problems that they created for us. They're a very considerate bunch of people, folks, very considerate indeed.